Welcome back to New World Fantasy Football. After a long hiatus, uh, a very interesting draft night, as it always is. We're back after about 40 minutes of technical issues, and we're going to pray to the computer gods, Steve Jobs, and whoever else that our shit works. So, what's going on, Paul?
Not a whole lot, man. Like you said, we are now like an hour into the beginning of the podcast for us, but just moments into hopefully what you out there in the virtual universe is hearing. It has been a while. We're in the peak off season. It is what it is. We have an off season too, but we've missed a lot, right? You missed, of course, the NFL draft, but also I got my face broken recently.
Again?
There's interesting rap beef out there in the multiverse, so it's been an interesting time.
I didn't realize you got your face broken. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I'm being a little dramatic. I broke my nose playing softball.
Okay.
You
Again?
know, well, you might have. I might have told you about it like when it happened. It's been some weeks now, but yeah, I mean, it's not even really that interesting of a story. A ball was tailing into where the sun was. I lost it in the sun. Thought I had it, didn't. Crunch, blood. And
I guess sometimes you find out the softball isn't that soft.
no, it is not soft at all. But thankfully, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was a pretty clean fracture, and I didn't end up looking like Owen Wilson. But yeah, other than that, pretty normal summer down here so far. How's things for you?
Good, man. Good. We had a little expedition out to the Renaissance Festival with my son, and last past weekend that was cool.
Nice, man.
Dressed him up like a little knight. It was fun. Had a good time. It's always fun. Football though, man. Football. I do want to talk about some very brief news that's recent to our recording, and I need to get this out quick so it's still relevant. Nothing major. Jared Goff signed a big deal today, 4 years, a lot of money. I don't know the exact details, but a lot of money. Jared Goff is legit. I don't care what anybody says. I like him. He's good. Zeke is back on the Cowboys. Are we super excited about that, people?
All in.
All in. One clap for that. And schedule release is right around the corner from this time of recording. We do have the first game, and I think some more got leaked, but I'm just going to talk about the first game of the season. Once again, the Chiefs, being the Super Bowl champions, are hosting, and they're hosting the Ravens. So we're getting a rematch of the AFC Championship game. And we will see which set of thugs can, not the whole team, I'm really talking about Zay Flowers and Rashee Rice, can win that game.
What did Zay Flowers even do?
Nothing really. Nothing to get in trouble. It's just, I think it was like towards the end of the season when he dropped that ball and he was just acting a fool for a little bit, saying dumb stuff, but no major thing. Rashee Rice, on the other hand, a lot of major stuff. The whole car accident, having drugs, fighting people at clubs, doing all the stupid things. I guess he won the Super Bowl and thinks that his shit don't stink. I don't know. I would expect a lengthy suspension for him.
With things like that, yeah, I mean, I think there is a suspension that's going to come down. I don't know how many games we're talking about, but I think the Chiefs told us in the draft what they think of Rashee Rice's situation. After, obviously, you know, they had to shore up that receiver room. They added Hollywood, right? And I think Worthy is a worthy prospect
for sure.
You know, I think definitely they're preparing for suspension and possibly Rashee Rice not being a huge part of their 2024 plans.
Yeah, so, well, I hope that they don't have another idiot, Kadarius Toney. I feel like he's going to be out of the. I think he might be out of the league this year. Like that's got to be a bet.
I mean, it's like how many times can you just show us again and again and again that not only like it's a double whammy with KT, right? It's number one, you're not producing on the field, which is above anything else. The NFL will forgive you for some heinous thing
absolutely
if you just produce on the field. So he's not doing that. Plus, he acts like an idiot. So like that's a double whammy, no brainer.
He doesn't offer much, unfortunately. But with that all said, like I'm ready to jump into this draft. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot of teams. Some of the teams are more interested than other teams, but you know, the first 14 picks of the NFL draft are offensive players. Not all skill position players, but you know, very interesting. Just right off the top, man. Tell me what you're thinking about Dub Ayers.
Yeah, I mean,
first and ninth pick of the draft.
It's hard to believe when you are watching the coverage of the draft leading up to the draft that there is other prospects outside of Caleb Williams, but he was clearly the prize, the big prize. I don't care if you're Ryan Poles or stripping on a pole. You do not know exactly how a quarterback is going to turn out until you see them on the actual pro field. But it seems like from every evaluator, from everybody that's been talking about this for 3 years, it seems like he has as good a chance as anybody to be that guy. Obviously, they've also supported him in a way that they definitely didn't support Justin Fields or any quarterback there ever, pretty much. So, yeah, the Rome Odunze ad is huge. They already brought in Keenan Allen. They had DJ Moore. So, I guess my feelings about it is like he certainly has the inside track to have the best rookie season of those big three, quote unquote, quarterbacks at the top.
Right.
But
JJ McCarthy, the other big three quarterback that might have a great season. But dude, yeah, you hit it nail on the head. But I do want to mention also, don't forget DeAndre Swift, man. He got signed there as well, and he's a good receiver out of the backfield. I think he's going to help make that offense look a lot better at times.
Good weapon.
He's good. So all the can't miss stuff is not true. Any quarterback can miss. Any player can be a miss. Doesn't matter if you take him 101. It doesn't matter if you take him Mr. Irrelevant. This is just the way it works. So we'll see what happens with Caleb Williams. There's a lot of people that don't really believe in him because of I don't even know if it's off-field antics because it's not really. It's just kind of him being himself, which like good for him. Who cares? If he's a little odd, he's a little odd. We know so is Peyton Manning in his own way. So was Tom Brady in his own way. Like, who cares?
Tom Brady is extremely odd. Have you seen the roast?
No.
Like, he gets the freedom because he's the GOAT, and so when you're the GOAT, you can do whatever you want and be whatever you want. He's a weird fucking guy, dude. He's a weird guy.
And that weirdness is probably also goes to his years and years of greatness. The level of preparation that nobody else wanted to do and whatever. I mean, Caleb Williams, his personality to me, as long as he's a competitor on the field and he puts his head down and works and he doesn't let the off-field and outside crap matter, he should be fine because his talent is great. But you never know what's going on between the ears with people. So that being said, for fantasy football purposes, Dub Ayers, they're an interesting team. They've got a lot of new weapons. They've got a new quarterback. They got two new receivers, one, via trade, one via the draft. They got another free agency running back who projects to be their running back one. Like, they had a very eventful, interesting offseason. Right off the bat, I want to say I am not a big proponent of like drafting Rome Odunze where he's going. And I think that his hype is going to outpace his production this year because he's got a lot of things in front of him. And even if Caleb Williams is that guy, rookie quarterbacks typically do not support any wide receiver ones throughout history, like top 12 wide receivers in fantasy. They just don't seem to do it. It can happen. It has happened. It's just rare. So you're talking about a rookie quarterback and the projected wide receiver 3, at least to start the season. To me, that's not worth the 6th or 7th round wide receiver, here in mid-May.
And I would have a tendency to agree with you because my first instincts, in most regards, I'll kind of dive into my thoughts more, but like when I hear the Bears, I just hear a lot of mouths to feed. Now, there should be a overall higher passing chart to go around, right? Justin Fields did not produce a whole lot of air yards, even when he was playing well. That just really wasn't a huge part of his game. So, you got to kind of call your shot if you're like a true Caleb truther. Like, is he gonna do CJ Stroud type of things? Like, that's the best case scenario, right? Like, and that's the most. If that happens, then absolutely Rome will be valuable. But I'll say that drafting rookie receivers that don't have a clear path to playing time immediately in redraft leagues is a little scary because you have a 13-week fantasy season, but you really have about 7 weeks to decide what kind of season you're going to have. If you're 2-5, you're probably already toast, right? So
Been there, done that.
I think that to start out the season, I expect him to be a little slow out of the gate, I would imagine, because of the other more veteran receiving options in that room. But in the specific context of our league that has keepers involved, obviously in a dynasty, I think his path is wide open. Keenan Allen has to be about done. Like, in terms of, I think Keenan Allen can be a possession receiver that is really valuable in that offense for a while because that doesn't really necessitate much athleticism. But, he's older. He was kind of brought in as a free agent. LA didn't want him anymore in a team that was already bereft of receivers. So I don't see the path to number 2 being as difficult in that offense. But yeah, if you're taking Rome Odunze in the 6th round, that's planting your flag on Mount Caleb pretty strongly.
Yeah. So let's just, before we move on to the next team, let me just ask you this. If you can, this is just redraft. If you can take one player from the Bears on your team this year, who would you want?
Give me DJ.
Still want DJ. I
still want DJ.
I'll say, I think, now this is including with the ADPs, so take that as
in consideration.
Yeah, in consideration. I think mine's actually DeAndre Swift because experienced running backs with rookie quarterbacks, they usually get leaned on a little bit more. And I know his playing style in college wasn't exactly checked down. That's true. But I feel like they're going to rely on their run game a little more than you might think. So not that Caleb can't handle, big workload passing the ball, but I just think they're going to want to keep these games conservative enough to where it doesn't get out of hand, at least early in the season. So I like those prospects. Moving on, man.
That's a good call out on DeAndre Swift. My reasoning behind DJ Moore is just simply that I think that because he's the incumbent, he kind of sounds like he's getting kind of forgotten a little bit. He's not old still by any stretch of the imagination. He's capable of big plays. And so I think he'll provide the best value out of that receiver room. But, a starting running back on an offense that should be running on all cylinders, hell yeah, give me that shit too.
Yeah, my very close second is DJ Moore. So moving on to Washington, though, man. Washington had a fun draft themselves. Hate to say it, but obviously their big ticket player was Jaden Daniels.
Was Ben Sinnott.
I'm going to talk about him because I like him. I think he's going to be very good. But, of course, we got to start with Jaden Daniels. Would you say he's your pick of all these rookies? Because for me, I actually think he's going to be the QB, the top rookie QB for fantasy this year.
Rushing. That's the name of the game when it comes to fantasy quarterback upside. So, yeah, that's as good a bet as any. Like, do I think that if you ask a football fan that doesn't play fantasy at the end of the season, he probably would tell you Caleb Williams, because Caleb still has the best ecosystem around him to succeed. But you know, if you're asking people in the fantasy community, yeah, man, if you get like 750 yards and, you know, 5 or 6 touchdowns on the ground your rookie season, that makes you a valuable rookie quarterback.
And you know, it's not like he still doesn't have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson.
Yep.
And Zach Ertz is there. He's an old mofo, but he's a reliable guy. And Ben Sinnott, you know, I love it. I think that
What do you like
about
Ben?
Huh?
What do you like about Ben?
Just when you watch him play, he seemed very fluid catching the ball. He seems like he's got a chance to be a great, like, all-around tight end and stay on the field. But he's going to have to pass Zach Ertz, which might not take forever, but we can't get blinded by Sam Laporta being the rare case of a rookie tight end being as good as he was. That often doesn't happen. It's usually takes a year or two. Because you know who else broke out last year? Trey McBride. And in his original year with Zach Ertz there in front of him, did nothing. So, you know, I wouldn't get too far ahead of myself, but he's definitely somebody who's very much on my radar. And when I start to see that snap count creeping up, tight end leagues, obviously, I'm going to be looking at picking him up if I'm not already set at tight end.
And I think that a fair disclaimer for everybody listening is that most of these conversations, there's a few guys you can probably guess who they're going to be that we would talk about as immediate impact rookies, guys that, like, even if it's just redraft, you're in a work league with your buddies, like, will have an immediate impact. Most of these guys are not going to be top 24 guys at their position right away, and that's okay. It's okay. They're still worthy to be on the fantasy radar and for you to know them.
Yeah.
Because when next year's draft rolls around and everybody's already forgotten the Adonai Mitchells of the world, the Lad McConkeys,
Ricky Pearsall. I can smell post-hype breakout from here.
Yeah. Then those sophomore receivers are really going to blow up, but not for you, because you already knew about them because you're smart. Because you listen to this,
or you draft them too early, get frustrated, drop them, and 2 weeks later they start breaking out, and you don't have the fab, you know, because you had to pick up Josh Palmer. You know, don't be that guy.
We've all been that guy, brother.
We've all been that guy.
We've all been that
guy.
So,
third pick, they also had a very eventful, I think, don't quote me on it, but I want to say the Patriots picked offense like almost maybe even every pick of their draft.
Well, yeah, they better. Their offense fucking stunk.
Yeah, it was garbage, hot garbage.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. So they went Drake May, Jalen Polk.
In the fourth round, Javon Baker from UCF.
That's right, Javon Baker.
Well, I think has a chance to be a legit sleeper. I think that he may even end up being better.
I heard his touchdowns from my backyard.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. But Drake May, I would say, honestly, I think he's going to have a worse season than JJ McCarthy, even though I think he's a better talent. He just doesn't have the group around him. He's got a first-year head coach, a completely rebuilt offensive, group around him, and they're still going to want to run the ball, I think, because that's the safest way for them to play. I like the receivers they drafted. I think Jalen Polk is a good all-around guy, just needs help in the technical part of the game. Javon Baker, something about him. Good production at UCF, but I kind of like this. And I don't know if you even knew this, but he transferred from Alabama to UCF.
I did not know that. Not a college guy over here.
Yeah, I'm not a huge college guy either, but some of us do research. So
who can keep track of these damn transfers these days anyway?
Oh, it's basically like a mini version of the pros at this point, and that's a whole other conversation I won't get into. But really getting buried on that super transfer portal coming in where everybody wants to play for Bama. He kind of got buried. You may say that's a detriment or a indictment on his talent, but then he went to UCF and dominated for a year. So I like that. Chip on your shoulder guys, in the fourth round, there was another guy named Amon-Ra St. Brown, same kind of deal, where he came into the league with a chip on his shoulder, and now he's a first round pick in fantasy. So we'll see. You never know. But the Patriots, there's a team I'm looking to mostly stay away from and just kind of peek if I need a flex guy, maybe see what's going on. But Ramondre is
what happens. I want to see what happens with them, because at least with these other teams, there's an establishment in place that you can trust. The Patriots stunk so bad on offense last year. Yeah, they drafted their only 3 picks in the first 4 rounds. They drafted offensive players with them, or at least 3 out of the 4 picks, rather. And you're just relying on an entire incoming class of rookies to have a good offense for fantasy, and that's just not safe money.
You know what, though? I will say, for the Patriots' sake, for them, their NFL positioning right now, they're in a division with offensive powerhouse Miami, with a Josh Allen-led Buffalo, and with how am I forgetting the
former offensive powerhouse?
Well, the Jets are there. Yeah. And their prospects seem to be better. They're getting Aaron Rodgers back. We'll see how that goes. I think that he's mostly washed, but still better than Zach Wilson and any other freaking bum they threw out there last year. But the Jets are still a better roster than the Patriots. So for them doing that, wanting to build up their offense and let it flourish over the next couple of years with Drake May, of course, who I think is going to be very good. I think it's smart for them to know where they're at and not try to force it, not spend a bunch of money in free agency. Just be like, we suck right now. We know we suck. Let's get the guys in here to make this team grow over the next couple of years. And, maybe Miami takes a tumble. Maybe Josh Allen snaps his leg 1 year, whatever. I mean, I don't hope for that, but.
Are Caleb included? Are you drafting any of these incoming rookie quarterbacks? I'm not even going to say the top 12, in the top 14.
The only one that I would consider is probably, it's between Caleb and Jaden Daniels, honestly. I'd really have to look at a full ranking sheet, but let's put it this way. The last, I've been toying around with sleeper drafts now that there are rookies in there and all that. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are going ahead of Justin Herbert, which is just ridiculous to me, because it's the narrative on the Chargers is just going way too far. The pendulum is swinging too far of that they're going to pass the ball 4 times a game. Come on, guys.
Well, we're going to talk about them soon.
We will.
I also think it's probably the fantasy community's indictment of just the very so Ladd McConkey is a nice prospect. I do like him, but outside of that, the cupboard is quite bare at receiver, I think is the concern there. But any other thoughts on Drake, or do we want to move on to the real fantasy star?
Oh, man, let's talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, man. MHJ. I don't know that I really have very much that I need to say about him that hasn't been said before. He's been said to be the most NFL-ready receiver prospect that has come out in any sort of recent memory. And he fucking looks the part, dude. 6'3", dominant at the point of attack, just fast, field fast more so than even the combine numbers. He was picked number 4 overall. He was mocked number 4 overall forever. He feels like a chalk he can't miss to me. Am I missing anything?
No, man. I think that what happens leading up to the draft is you just get like prospect fatigue, or people who talk about it all the time get prospect fatigue, and they want to like be contrarians and be like, Marvin Harrison's not the wide receiver 1. It's actually Malik Nabers. Oh, actually, I have Rome Odunze. Oh, I actually have, Lad McConkey or whatever. Just because they want to be different and they want to, and the football content world is never ending. So if they say the same thing over and over again, it's not going to be interesting. So sometimes you get people who want to say something different just for the sake of it. Whatever. The point I'm trying to make is Marvin Harrison is one of the best wide receiver prospects, as you already know. He is going to a team that desperately needs a weapon, big time, and they got him. And Kyler Murray is a very capable quarterback who will – you saw what he did with DeAndre Hopkins. He's very willing to just bomb the ball down the field to his best receiver. Marvin Harrison will come up with those, and I think he's going to be fantastic as a rookie.
So I guess the only question, we're in complete agreement. I don't think that we are gonna disagree very much on MHJ. I guess the only conversation we had about him is like how soon is too soon? How early is too early for
Sleeper has him as the 14th overall player already. They have him above Devontae Adams, a freaking yearly stud.
What have you done for me lately?
Been pretty good. I mean, he was up and down last year, but overall, I mean, not a bad finish for Devontae. And, some of that's playing into, okay, well, Devontae's quarterbacks, which have never really mattered in the past, are Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Not guys you get excited about. But he's produced with bad quarterbacks before. The excitement, though, we'll see. It's mid-May. When August starts rolling around, we'll see if the excitement is still there and the hype is still there. It's not going to be much less, but we'll see. There might be some shifting.
I'm definitely taking him over Brandon Ayuk. He seems to be in that range there, and I like Brandon Ayuk. I'm not saying that like there's anything wrong with it, but on top of the whole like nebulous conversation around whether he's going to get traded or not, that's enough for me. Like I'll ride the hype train. Give me the new hotness.
Sure. And if there's anybody to do that with, it's Marvin Harrison. I think that he is a pretty safe bet and can. But rookies have a tendency to be inconsistent. That's the only problem.
Yeah, so. And look, didn't Justin Jefferson struggle in his first few games his rookie year, and then obviously went on to be historically fucking great.
Yeah, but and the thing about him is Jalen Reagor was drafted above him.
Yeah, exactly. And
few Eagles
I guess just a piece of future advice to everybody out there, but including myself, if you do end up riding that hype train, taking a stab at him super early, investing that early round pick. If it doesn't go great for a couple weeks, don't jump. No, it's okay.
You're not jumping on a early second round pick or mid second round pick that fast. So, but the Cardinals also drafted another exciting rookie, a day 2 pick, Trey Benson. A lot of people's RB1 in this draft, this NFL draft. And let me just say this. He is not going to, day 1, be ahead of James Conner. But James Conner, if you do end up with James Conner or you have him on a dynasty league or whatever, get your hands on Trey Benson, because James Conner has never played a full season. He has always missed time. So there will be a time where Trey Benson is going to be needed. You're going to want him on your team because I think he's going to be pretty good.
Completely agree. And the other thing to remember about James Conner, great story, great player for a long time. And age has not seemed to have caught up with him the same way that it has with other players, but it eventually will, because it always does.
Yeah. It always
because
does.
I'm undefeated. So
And he's got a lot of miles on him. He's got a lot of miles on him, James Conner.
And I think that I'm sure we're going to talk about this later too, but like when I feel like we always have to like, because this receiver class was so sexy and because the NFL is so hot and bothered for receivers, I don't think we're properly contextualizing these running backs. I think we got some pretty good guys, or at least guys that I think can be fantasy relevant in a little bit of a later rounds than normally you would think.
Well, yeah, there's one we're going to talk about later on because of the draft order.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, there are still some good players here, but you're right. It's just the running back value in today's NFL also affects the fantasy draft capital and all that stuff. That does matter, but you have to keep it in context and realize that running backs are a lot more reliant upon what's around them and opportunity, where wide receivers are just talent is just going to win out.
Yeah, and you got to, but as a fantasy player, you gotta play that zigzag game big time, and this might be a good year for you to get some sneaky value on some running backs because they were drafted a little bit later, and because maybe people overreact to, because again, running backs are so much more valuable to fantasy football than they are to the actual NFL teams on the field. I think you have an opportunity to take advantage of that when you're drafting in your home leagues. But should we move on to a certain team in New York drafting another weapon?
Real quick, I do want to talk about the Chargers. We talked about Ladd a little bit. I just want to say I think McConkey is a good player, and I think that he is going to really be a target hog over there.
He has to be.
It just makes sense. I do think that their offense is going to be a little bit more conservative. It's getting overblown, I think, because it's like, okay, Jim Harbaugh's a great coach. You think he's going to come in and not use a very talented quarterback? That is so stupid. Of course he is. That makes no sense. Because in college, he had a elite running game and a limited quarterback and one of the best offensive lines that college football's ever seen. Like, come on, he's playing to his strengths.
I completely agree. I have no qualms against that. They got the best O lineman in the draft. That helps them in every aspect of the game.
As a pass protector too.
Yeah. But yeah, McConkey is Mr. Necessary. He probably, obviously he's not like the best receiver in the class, but he's probably, outside of MHJ, I don't know that any of these other receivers are going to command a day one target share the way that he does. And it's a very simple calculus for me. Josh Palmer has been a certified Jag for a couple years now. He's just not a great receiver. QJ, I'm not ready to tag you as a fully sucked out NFL prospect yet, but you are on high alert for suckage. So the path is clear. The path is very clear for him.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Quentin Johnston is that all of his advanced metrics and like benchmarks of like projecting wide receivers to be breakout players or bust, he pretty much falls in the bust category with all of them, which sucks. His like yards per route run is really low, which is and he got a lot of opportunities, so it wasn't like completely fluky.
It's all looking so.
I am gonna just full on say I'm out on him, but I don't blame anybody for taking a flyer on him at all.
Yeah, I mean, like anybody that has that kind of opportunity in draft capital, you should take a flyer on. Just you're also allowed to feel not good about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's move on. Anything you'd like to say about the New York Giants before I start going off on a
honestly,
lecture?
Like I don't really have that much to say except you're not going to take the fourth quarterback off the board at that spot. It's just I know you need a quarterback. It is what it is. You're not going to take the fourth quarterback. Malik Nabers, I think, looks really good and would be the number one receiver if MHJ was never born. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, but I'm sure you have more nuanced thoughts than that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy MHJ was born because that gave the opportunity for the Giants to draft Malik Nabers. Would I have loved to have MHJ? Well, yeah. I mean, I'm extremely happy if it was with either one. So I'm happy the Giants got Nabers. And once again, another overreaction I think that people are going to have is that, well, Daniel Jones's ass, well, Drew Lock, blah, 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 all this stuff. Okay, that's fine. Just look back one more year, and Daniel Jones, while his numbers aren't great, touchdown numbers have never been great, all that kind of stuff. Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, they did not draft Joe Shane, did not draft Malik Nabers to like let him just run routes and like that's it. They saw the yak. Daniel Jones is still good at throwing intermediate routes. He's good at throwing to a spot. He's not awful at that. It's other things, advanced things that he very severely lacks. Get the ball in Malik Nabers' hands. He is going to make some things happen. He's going to be fine for fantasy. He's already going in the third round. Is he going to meet that ADP being on this offense? I am not so sure about that, but the player himself is not going to be completely nerfed by one, take your pick at whatever Giants quarterback they're going to be rolling out that week. So, with that said, I do believe in Malik Nabers as a talent. He is an elite talent.
And he's another guy to me that the path is clear.
They needed a wide receiver one desperately.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Giants have invested picks into wide receivers with very mixed results lately. But I don't think they screwed this one up at all. Malik looks legit.
We've had a lot of wide receiver 2s and 3s that haven't had the quarterback to make them fantasy relevant. I don't think that Malik Nabers needs a great quarterback to make him relevant, but it would be nice. But not everybody can be in that situation. And his first year in the league, going to be a rookie. He's not going to have somebody that's going to do that. Maybe Daniel Jones says, fuck it. This is probably my last year here. If I'm ever going to earn another contract with the Giants or anybody else, I just need to start flinging this goddamn ball. And maybe Malik Nabers makes him look better. But there's one other guy I do want to talk about that the Giants drafted in the 4th round, tight end, Theo Johnson. And the only reason I want to bring him up, well, there's 2 reasons. The incumbent of Daniel Bellinger is not exactly a fantasy relevant tight end. He's a good football player.
Good walrus.
He's kind of like a, 3 catches for 35 yards. He's a touchdown dependent plotter that you put in, back to the pile for South Park of tight ends. That's what you're hoping for. But like Theo Johnson, I just want to say this. 9.93 relative athletic score. I think he was the 2nd or 3rd best tight end ever. In athleticism, athletic tight ends equal fantasy points. That's just not always, because there are a lot of guys who just suck at football, but he has a chance to be a legitimate fantasy tight end.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing the numbers game there, athletic tight ends, they just create matchup nightmares. Now, if they have the actual subsequent football skills to like actually make it happen on a real level, remains to be seen. But I like that. That's a nice little sleeper tip. Anything else on Los Gigantes? Or are we going to talk about the head scratcher of the night?
Well, I'm just going through every team, so I'll quickly say.
Oh, you Titans, literally are going. Yeah, I made a list just so that.
Yeah, okay. Titans O lineman J.C. Latham, great. 6th round wide receiver. Titans. They got Calvin Ridley in the offseason. Okay, cool. Not really much to say there about the Titans. So yes, we will talk about the hot Atlanta Falcons. They got a lot of heat on draft night, and you already know why.
Yeah. Look, and this is something that's been talked about to death. I don't think that I need to keep beating the dead bird. But I think that I went through like different kind of iterations of my thoughts with this, where the immediate knee jerk was, what the fuck? That was the first thing. Because teams just don't do that. And obviously a top 8 pick, another top 8 pick, it's like, okay, well, could you have had the best defensive player in the draft? Could you have had, keep adding to that receiving core with a Roma Dunze or whomever, right? Or, could you have done literally anything else except address the position that you just invested millions and millions of dollars into with Kirk Cousins? But then took a breath, took a step back, and I tried to think about it from the perspective of just a pure asset management perspective. And I now have two independent thoughts about it, one side and another. On the one side, from just asset management, if we agree that quarterback is the most important position on the football field, if you don't have a quarterback, as the Falcons know, literally everything else can be great and it doesn't matter. So from an asset management perspective, giving yourself a contingency plan at quarterback when the guy you just signed is older, has a bum Achilles, may or may not get back to the guy that he was. And frankly, Kirk Cousins, is he a Super Bowl quarterback anyways? Probably not, right? So like you're giving yourself a little bit of a contingency plan from that standpoint. So like from pure cold football management, I actually don't hate the pick. But from the other side, when you actually think about the reality of a locker room and the message you're sending with that pick, I don't love that. Because like on one hand, Michael Penix is pissed because he's like, what the hell, dude? Like I'm trying to have an opportunity to start. He's no spring chicken for a rookie either, by the way.
Yeah.
And so this isn't like a Jordan Love situation where the guy's only 20 years old and still has like all this football in front of him. Like if he sits for 4 years, he's an old man basically at that point. And then Kirk Cousins is pissed because you essentially said like, well, Kirk, you thought you were the guy. You're really just an overpaid bridge. That's what he's on his end. So those are my competing thoughts. I actually don't think it's the stupidest move from an asset standpoint, but man, that's going to be a very interesting dynamic that I don't wish on any team.
Yeah, and then also it creates this unwanted QB controversy where Kirk has one bad game and the fan base wants the big fat steamy pile of Penix right in their face. And it's like, do you really want that though? Think about what you're asking for. So yeah, 24 years old for a quarterback is not the end of the world. We see them play into their mid 30s to late 30s all the time. But yeah, it's the offseason of we want to win now to the draft of we'll win later kind of mentality shift that was weird. But we've talked about it to death. You've heard a million things about it. It was an odd pick. And
how did you feel about it? Because I feel like I just waxed poetic and I kind of gave different perspectives there, but like real quick, like what are your thoughts on it now?
I lean, I kind of like you. I had, the angel and the devil on each shoulder, but like having those two competing opinions. But ultimately, I lean towards I don't like the pick because you want to at the 8th overall pick, and you've needed pass rush forever. You've got a few guys. Pick your, whichever one you like the most that can come in and be immediate impact and help the Falcons win right away in a very winnable division. I don't know why you don't do that and try to build the roster up. There's going to be other years you can draft quarterback. You can get another free agent quarterback. It's not easy to attain quarterback, and I just felt like they saw a guy that they did like, obviously, and Michael Penix, and said, ripcord, got to pull it, got to pull it, got to pull it. I didn't like the thought process there.
And look, like here's the reality of the whole situation. If he's good, none of it matters.
It won't matter. You're right.
Process doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
But they wanted another black lefty named Michael. That's what they really wanted.
R.I.P. to all the dogs in the greater Atlanta area.
Yeah. Shit.
So another offensive player. We did talk about this actually. So I'm going to skip ahead because I forgot we already did Chicago.
Jets.
The Jets. Los Jets.
Yep. El Jettos. They had an interesting draft. Olu Fashanu, very necessary pick for them, offensive tackle. But another guy that people are excited about is Malachi Corley. And I don't know if Paul's heard much about Malachi Corley, but he's basically a smaller in stature version. And this comparison gets made every single year with anybody who has any kind of yak ability is Deebo Samuel. But he is one of those guys who's a catch and turn into a bowling ball kind of guy, which, the Jumbo Jets are going to like. They also drafted Braylon Allen. He's a guy I liked. Very young breakout age, big and fast, big, strong man, go Burr. Kind of like that. So, and then they drafted another running back in the 6th round, Isaiah Davis. So it's like, I don't know. I guess they're just filling up the depth in the RB room behind Brees. But they did draft Jordan Travis as well.
They've had
interesting offensive draft for the Jets.
Yeah. They've had injuries at that position, so I don't necessarily fully blame them for that, but it is interesting. It is interesting because we think Brees Hall is healthy. He's the main guy for foreseeably the next 2 or 3 years. So I have a feeling one of these guys probably ends up, in a special teams role. But
their 6th rounder, who's also, I think, he's going to be used as a fullback, I think, a little bit. So take that how you will.
So J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota in the chalkiest move ever that, he was mocked by everybody. Just replacing a somewhat upside capped, wholesome white quarterback with another one. Do we have any thoughts there?
I like J.J. McCarthy going through the draft process and, watching him in college. And I thought J.J. McCarthy can throw a good tight spiral, strong arm. I think he's got some mobility. There's a lot to work with there. It's just, when you're deemed the 4th best quarterback or 5th, depending on how, whatever. People have their own opinions. But I like J.J. McCarthy. I just thought that teams are also very desperate, and the media makes the attitude around quarterbacks just absolutely wild. And usually you get people who drop, but the desperation was strong with teams this year. He's going into a great situation, though. He's got a very good head coach. He's got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Aaron Jones is a good running back to put behind him. He's in a great atmosphere like he was in college. So we'll see how he does.
He's just going to keep being a team merchant. I love it.
That's fine. That's fine. Say what you want. Is he going to be an option for fantasy? Maybe a streamer. I don't really know when it comes to that pick.
Yeah, I gotta think streamer guy here. But look, dude, all I care about is about JJ McCarthy. Now, I kind of trolled the pick, but it's not really about that for me. I just needed some stability at quarterback in Minnesota. Like the fact that you just let Kirk walk. Everybody in fantasy is pretty nervous, right? Justin Jefferson is incredible, but like the ball still has to be within
Catchable.
5 feet of his body, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we have, even if it's a rookie, at least somebody that has a little bit of juice, something at the quarterback position. I'm just happy they addressed it.
Yeah, and you know what? The guy's going to develop. Give him a chance to develop. That's all. So now to a quarterback pick that I fucking hated. I think this player sucks. Bo Nix.
Well, not Sean Payton, because apparently he thinks that he's Patrick Mahomes.
Well, Sean Payton is a fucking moron. I did not, but he's a dumbass. So you think that this Van Wilder motherfucker who has been in college for 6 years and like had to transfer and like
the
come on,
is
man.
Like the quote that like Sean Payton's such a d-bag, dude. As if I needed like any more reasons to dislike the Saints. Like his whole like reshaping of narratives around himself, like he's the guy that like I almost drafted Patrick Mahomes. This is when I almost drafted Patrick Mahomes, which every GM seems to have that story now. It sounds a whole lot like the story about the time you almost landed that big fish. But the real quote was he basically was comparing him to Drew Brees and was as sure that this guy would work in his system as he was about that guy. So he's putting a lot of external pressure on this kid.
I look forward to your team being a freaking hodgepodge of Jags and sucking. So whatever. I will say, okay, so 4th round, they drafted Troy Franklin. A lot of people had him going in the 2nd. I don't know that much about Troy Franklin, to be honest, but I will talk about the Broncos receiving room. So the aforementioned Troy Franklin, Courtland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims, Philip Dorsett. Is your dick hard?
No, it is not. In fact, I don't think I have one anymore.
We've known that for a while, actually. Sorry, bad question. But what's going to happen? This Denver offense, including the running backs, it's a mess, man. It's a mess. I have no idea how to extract any value.
It's no one that really excites you. I mean, I guess
Marvin Mims, I guess, still post-hype sleeper, Marvin Mims. I can say I can take a flyer on him.
Yeah, and look, he has the most juice remaining of any of those guys, right? Like
Sutton is not getting a ridiculous touchdown rate again.
No, and Courtland Sutton, we know who he is at this point. He's been around long enough. Troy Franklin, he could be good, he could not be, have no idea. So yeah, like Mims might be the guy to look at there, but honestly, I feel like Sean Payton's he's going to attempt to do this by committee and run his quote unquote system. We'll see. I have a feeling that I have a system for upcoming fantasy drafts, which is to avoid all of these players like the plague. Sorry, Javonte Williams, that you're getting thrown into this. I'm just not feeling great. Not feeling great about the game.
Yeah, Javonte's still intriguing because his knee injury was so devastating, and it's like everybody's like, "Oh yeah, well, he's going to take a year," and then the year goes by, and it's like, "But he wasn't good last year," so it's like, "Well, what the fuck?" Like
you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, "Oh, he's coming off that knee injury, but why did you suck though?"
Yeah, it's like you're getting double whammied on it. So, all right, the Raiders, and just the sexiest, smartest, like genius drafting ever. They got so much value of Brock Bowers, 13th overall, and put him right next to Michael Myers, or whatever, Michael Mayer, not the axe murderer, but like, dude, you just drafted a tight end in the 1st round the year before. Or was it even the 1st? Maybe it was the 2nd.
I think Mayer was the 2nd, but still,
okay,
that's
whatever.
That's high. That's high. And they were probably high when they made this pick, but I guess I don't know, man. I guess like expect.
Josh McDaniels is not there anymore, right? Is he trying to recreate Gronk and Aaron Hernandez? Like he's not there.
God,
I don't get it, man. I don't.
I guess expect to see a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. I mean,
I guess so. I mean, they'll help out, be good safety nets for their quarterbacks. I don't know. Could it work? Yes. Is it going to work? No, because the Raiders.
well, but I feel like we would be remiss to not at least mention the fact that, okay, the process is kind of weird because you spent such high draft capital on Michael Mayer, but like Michael Mayer can't hold a torch to Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is legitimately one of the better prospects of the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't go that high, and probably would have went higher if other teams weren't like, damn, we really need quarterbacks and we really need O linemen. So,
well, I think it was a BPA. I give him a little bit of the credit for the BPA.
Sure. I will say that it was good value for him, at least what the general consensus said. But I want to talk about one other thing about the Raiders, not about what they did or they drafted, but who they didn't draft, and that's a running back. And they don't have Josh Jacobs, so put me in the camp for Zamir White this year.
Yeah, I mean Zamir White stock through the roof. I mean, I'm shocked. I thought that too on draft day. I'm shocked that they didn't at least get somebody in day 3. I mean, but because there was a ton of running backs to be had, obviously. But yeah, I mean, obviously they if they love Zamir White, then I'll take the volume. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And then this is where my notes have a gap because I literally listed only skill position players. So if there are other teams you wanted to touch on, I'll let you.
Yeah, I can. I'll just literally going to say one sentence about the Saints. They drafted a bunch of linemen. Smart on them football wise. It's going to be the same cast of characters you already know. So that's it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Colts?
Yeah. I like their draft a lot. I thought first of all, they brought a lot of starters back in the offseason. So there wasn't like, there's still holes on the team, but there was like incumbent stars, quote unquote, in a lot of positions. But, they got the first defensive player in the whole damn draft in Latu.
Yeah. Great pick.
I think so too, man. Like obviously whatever was going on with his neck, the medically retired from football thing, I think it's actually a story in his favor. I mean, if you're enough of a psycho to have a fucked up neck and decide to like play some rugby and then go back to football and go back into it, I don't think you're afraid. And his highlights jump off the page for sure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they addressed what every team with a young quarterback needs to address, which is the receiver room. Andrew, you asked me a little bit a few episodes ago if it was R.I.P. Alec Pierce. I wasn't ready to say that yet. I am now ready to say R.I.P. Alec Pierce.
I literally have in my notes, which you did not see, you have not seen. Bye-bye, Alec Pierce.
Okay, so
there you go.
So yeah, I mean, because Adonai Mitchell, I like him. I mean, this could just be some fan hopium type of stuff, but he looks like exactly the type of X receiver that they've really needed. Michael Pittman is awesome, but he's awesome in a specific space.
Yeah,
like he is awesome. He's a great possession guy.
He's a taller, younger Keenan Allen for sure, which is not a bad thing at all.
No, and they love him in the blocking game, so I think they're going to get a little more creative with that. Obviously, Josh Downs has his role carved out on the team. He's going to be shifty in the middle of the field, and I don't know if it's going to happen right away with Adonai, particularly with a quarterback that's pretty unproven in the passing game. But I like the pick. I like the process of the pick. I like the player from what I've seen. Pretty stoked.
For sure, man. I'm not the biggest AD Mitchell fan, but you know what? I've been wrong many times before. We'll see how he develops. And he should get playing time right away, which is good.
Yeah. Dude, I'm no draft expert. I'm not fucking breaking shit down. I liked his highlights like any other fan would.
Sure. As you should. You be excited about your team. That's fandom. Seahawks, bunch of defenders and O-line. No running backs. I guess Ken Walker is just gonna stay in RB1, and Zach Charbonnet I think was overhyped last year anyway. So, Bengals. Bengals had some interesting players. Third round, Jermaine Burton, another Bama receiver. Interesting pick. We'll see what happens with T. Higgins. A lot of times this is a bunch of talk and then the guys don't actually get traded. So we'll see. If T is gone, Jermaine Burton becomes a little bit more interesting.
A little insurance there.
But at the same time, they drafted something Yoshivas last year and Charlie Jones. So they've got a lot of receivers there. We don't know who's going to
emerge
if T's gone. Tyler Boyd's not there anymore. I forget what team he went to.
Doesn't matter.
No, doesn't matter. But another guy, very similar to Theo Johnson, a fourth-round tight end. Eric All, A-L-L, Eric All, in the fourth round. Great athleticism. They have needed a tight end there, a legitimate tight end there for some time. Let's see. That's guy definitely on my radar, Eric All.
Take note of him. Iowa receivers, baby.
Another Iowa tight end. Another Iowa tight end. That's right.
They might as well be receivers.
Yeah. So that's really all I got to say about the Bengals. I guess you can talk about one of your ex-Colts because he seems like he's going to get first crack at it. But is it going to be a Dameon Pierce situation for Zach Moss?
You're saying
maybe.
Cincy?
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, Zach Moss is fine. I've trashed on Zach Moss because I feel like some people, kind of got a little bit overhyped with him after his first couple games that he was spelling JT. He's a downgrade from Joe. I think it's pretty clear to say, but behind that O-line, on that offense, I'm not really scared of anybody else behind him. I think he's fine as a volume plan. He's shown that he can do it in certain schemes because obviously whatever that scheme was in Buffalo wasn't it for him, right?
Yeah. Josh Allen runs the ball show. Yeah, that's not a good scheme for running backs.
Well, yeah, right. But I don't know. I think he'll be fine. But always, I've been guilty of this too. If you're drafting a volume play, always draft with caution because if you're just drafting based on volume, that volume can go to someone else.
Absolutely. Lack of talent takes you off the field. Teams want to win. It's that simple.
Right now, he seems like the best talent on that depth chart.
If you can get him as an RB3, preferably 4, to take a shot on, that's great. It's a great spot to draft him. But you don't want to fall into this, Dameon Pierce, Alexander Madison kind of thing where it's but the opportunity it's not there.
I really have both of those bums last year. Damn.
Did you? Oh, you did draft Dameon Pierce. That's right. So there you go. You're taking your own advice you learned last year. That's what fantasy's about. You got to learn every year. The Crams, the Los Angeles Crams. I like the Rams, man. I like Sean. What's his name? Freaking name's escaping me now. McVay. I think he's really good at what he does.
Yeah,
I will say.
I'd say most people would agree with you.
Yeah. I like it, man. I like Puka. I like their team. If you have Kyron Williams, your fear factor for them drafting Blake Corum should be, in my opinion, 0. Corum is, I think, the most overhyped player in the whole draft. He will be a fucking Jag, not a Jaguar, but just a guy.
He might be a Jag one day.
He might end up on the Jaguars, but he's just a guy who was on a really good team. And I'm not just talking about JJ McCarthy. But when I looked at his game film, I was just like, dude, this guy is like not a ton of burst, not a ton of power, doesn't just in that system, he didn't have to use his hands and catch the ball very much. I was like, I'm just not about him. I'm like, he's gonna just be a dude. Kyron's already established and better. I think he's gonna be. I don't think he's gonna miss a beat. Still gonna be the Kyron show.
I'm always going to. I'm going to err on the side of who the incumbent is, especially when you have a. Yeah, I mean, it's like a round 3 pick. I don't think Blake's been incredibly impressive, but I'm just as a devil's advocate, because I really don't have an opinion on this, but just devil's advocate. I think that if you saw Kyron's just raw measurables coming into his draft class, probably wouldn't have thought that he would be as good as he was.
No, but he was an outlier. He's an Arian Foster type guy who's just become a savant at the position, and he's really good. I've seen him produce at a super high level. Corum, the only thing I'll say is that round 3 is not a low pick for a running back. So he's got some draft capital. So, okay, 2% worry.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's 0, Andrew, because like here's the thing. I think Kyron Williams getting taken too high. I think he's getting taken too high,
but all I'm talking about is
right.
Blake Corum's chance to usurp him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to usurp him, but like Kyron Williams had an irresponsible workload last year. Now I know McVay likes to ride him. McVay likes to use one back. Like I get all that. Like I've heard all the same things, but if they want to keep somebody healthy, I don't think that Kyron's going to get the freaking 88% snap share or whatever BS he was on. Like. So that's why, like, I don't dislike Kyron as a fantasy player, fantasy prospect, but I'm a little worried that, like, looking at some of these rankings, and he's firmly in that second running back.
Like a 20 touchdown season will do that.
Yeah, and the touchdowns.
But I will say this about Kyron. He's proven that he's very good around the goal line, and he's proven to be a good receiver, which Corum is like, the jury's out on that, if he's even good at catching the ball. Jury is very much out on that.
Yeah, so he's not taking over for Kyron, but I think he'll spell him. I think they're looking for
spelling is fine. Spelling is fine. That's not going to like destroy a fantasy value. It's the by committee that sucks. I don't think it's going to be a committee. We'll leave it at that. Other than that, nothing really to say about the Rams.
Who else we got?
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Really, the only guy to talk about from the draft is Roman Wilson.
Yeah, they got him in the 3rd.
Another Michigan player. Steelers have had a great track record with their day 2 wide receiver picks. And with Deontay Johnson not being there, Roman Wilson projects to be a very good possession receiver. Keep your radar up for Roman Wilson. He could be
something to look at for sure. Again, this was such a amazing receiver class. Some of these guys shouldn't be day 2 guys.
Yeah, I think Roman Wilson, in a lot of other drafts is probably a second rounder versus a 3rd. But I think that, their offense, and Russell Wilson gets crapped on a lot, as he should, but he also was mediocre. He wasn't god-awful. He was mediocre.
Yeah, well, look, mediocre is better than what they've had for 3 years.
Yeah.
They'll take mediocre.
How fast
that's why they
moved on.
That's why they doubled down.
Where's Kenny Pickett now?
No idea. And I'm sure you're going to surprise me.
I legitimately forgot, but I know he got traded for what? What was it? I'm going to look this up right now.
He's riding a bench somewhere. Was it a 6th round pick? I don't know.
It was a low freaking pick. I want to find out now. I'm curious, so please hold, people. Kenny Pickett. Let's see here. Philly. He went to Philly.
Oh, it was a third. It was a third-round pick.
A third rounder. Okay, even still. A third rounder 2 years ago. Huh?
For a quarterback.
For quarterback. 2 years ago, when he got drafted, on draft night, called that shit. I said, this guy ain't it. His chick ain't that hot. Proving very low confidence. Look at him now. Okay.
I think if I remember that draft night, and I believe some beers were flowing that draft night when we were talking about it, but there was some sort of joke and aspersion made about the young lady's chest and how small his hands were, and if it was proportionate or not. There was some sort of joke made.
Yeah. Moving on. So, it's pretty wild, though. Within 2 seasons, they were ready to move on from a first-round quarterback pick. Just goes to show you.
Because he wasn't it. He wasn't it on draft night.
And
he showed every game that he wasn't it, and yet the standard is the standard.
Where will Bo Nix be in 2 years? That's my question. So, moving on. Not really much to talk about in the Steelers' offensive players. Freaking Najee Harris is going to just plod his way with Arthur Smith over there, just loving his slow running backs. Dolphins had a
got yet another
draft.
Small shifty running back.
Yeah, 4th rounder. I kind of see this guy as being like a nothing burger in fantasy this year. And I'm sorry, but Raheem Mostert is criminally underrated. I don't care.
Raheem Mostert's really good, but the age bug's going to get him too. They have to plan 2 seasons ahead. They can't just plan for this season.
I know, but this year he's still going as low as he is, and it's like the number next to his age is not what you want to see. He does not have a ton of miles on him.
Yeah, because he was hurt all the time, and everybody's worried about that too.
Yeah, I guess so. But for that system
down there with like the Javonte Williams and like Nick Chubb coming back from almost dying, like that feels a little disrespectful.
That's what I'm saying. Like the guy was. I feel like he's going to outpace that ADP. And HN is like a 2nd rounder already.
Take him over Najee. I'll tell you what.
And you know what? It's like people are forgetting that. I mean, how many times did Devon HN get hurt? Like 3 times? Come on.
It's almost as if Mike McDaniels prioritizes short area speed in smaller backs that have a tendency to get injured. Interesting.
Yeah. But you know what? He's got a bunch of us who can do the same thing.
It's like a never-ending roster of that.
So then, you know what? Maybe Jalen Wright will have a chance. Anyways, I don't have that much to say about it. I'm not running out to get Jalen.
I thought it was interesting as well. Clearly, they have a type. And he fits that type, so it feels like a good pick for that reason.
Yeah. Eagles had a annoying draft for a Giants fan because they got 2 really good corners. What project to be 2 really good corners.
Well, they needed them.
They did.
Needed big time.
Yep. Value met need for them. And
they got that Shipley kid.
Yeah, so Will Shipley. He's kind of just your jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy. They typically, if they're really good at everything, they can work out, of course. But like this year, he's buried behind Saquon. Saquon, obviously, very well documented injury history. But even if Saquon goes down, I don't think Will Shipley is automatically get everything kind of guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there.
Getting everything in Philly is not really getting everything.
He's got to learn how to push how am I forgetting his name? Jalen Hurts in the ass.
Yeah.
So yeah, not really much to say there. The Jaguars, though.
Yeah.
The Jaguars is some
BTJ.
team to talk about there. Any thoughts for you on the Jags' new prospects?
I mean, again, I don't pretend to be an expert on these kids, but it felt very much like need a receiver, get a receiver. The Calvin Johnson experiment obviously did not work out. Woof. Because he's now moved on to his third team in 3, I guess technically 4 years, because he was.
Did you say Calvin Johnson? I think you said Calvin Johnson. I know you mean
Oh,
Calvin Ridley.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I feel like you said Calvin Johnson.
No, you know what? I think you might be right. I'm tired. Calvin Ridley. The Calvin Ridley experiment didn't work out. There was no Calvin Johnson experiment in Jacksonville, but it probably would have been pretty cool. Yeah, dude. Like I don't know. I don't really have much more to say except that if Trevor Lawrence is finally going to shed these Daniel Jones allegations that are getting thrown in his direction, he needs another reliable receiver outside of Christian Kirk, because Christian Kirk has been good. He gets overlooked because these other ex-receiver names kind of get pushed, but they haven't really had a good ex-receiver. I don't know if BTJ is going to be a good ex-receiver, but they need somebody.
Yeah, I mean, highly, highly productive. LSU had a very good quarterback, threw the ball deep to him all year, scored a lot of touchdowns. That's great. I have to admit my biases, just to be fair to the world, the 30 people who will watch this, if they even get this far. But like, I have a negative bias towards Jaguars players because for a long time they just have not worked out for me.
Oh, as in history. All of
my
history.
own personal history with Jaguars players in fantasy. So, like, my knee-jerk reaction is like, this guy's not going to work out. But he's got a great athletic profile. He's tall. He's big. He's fast. I think it's a hands and a route running thing. But you know what? If Trevor Lawrence can just fling the ball and he gets a little bit of separation, could be a lot of big touchdowns. I'm seeing my pro comp for him is like Mike Williams.
They had to get more vertical. I think that's one of the biggest problems that they've had.
Well, they got a guy for that
for years.
My pro comp for him is Mike Williams.
Okay.
That's like what I think of when I see Brian, which is very good. This is very good. So
hope he stays healthier.
Yeah, you can't be injured every year like Mike Williams, but I like the pick. I like the pick for them. It made sense for sure. So we're going to talk about my favorite, not favorite team. They're not my favorite team, but they're kind of my favorite team, like right now, besides the Giants. Freaking Detroit Lions, man. They drafted Terrion Arnold, who I loved, because I love corners who play physical and dirty, and fits their mold completely. Now, fantasy-wise, it doesn't really matter. But I want to talk about the players they didn't draft. And a guy who I've been riding for a while, and that's Whiskey Dick. They let Josh Reynolds walk, and they didn't bring in any receivers of note. Jameson Williams, is it time? Is it freaking time for Jameson Williams to like be a fantasy contributor? I want it.
It might be time for the rise of the Whiskey Dick. Finally. Because dude, like, I don't know if it will really happen, but he has a chance. He's going into his third season. Really has been a bit player here and there throughout his first 2 seasons, but huge draft day investment. He has
while he was injured, while he had a torn ACL, he was like the 9th overall pick.
Yeah, like, and he had all of the shriv coming in from college, and he's shown speed, he's shown flashes, he's shown good things, but just not in any kind of consistent way. So yeah, I mean, this feels make or break, but he is
an X factor for fantasy simultaneously an X factor for the Lions. Because if he really breaks out, their offense is going to go to another level.
Lethal. It's going to be lethal. Because that was always what we thought it was going to be. That was why we were so hyped. And obviously they were great, because I don't think that anybody predicted that Sam Laporta would be Travis Kelce 2.0 in his rookie year. But yeah, there's an opportunity for, we just talked about, another X in this offense, and I think he'll get a chance. I think he's got the athletic traits for it. I think this season's just going to tell us if he's got it up here or not.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, he hasn't had as much of a documented, past as
No.
Darius Toney or anything like that. He just had the gambling thing, which sucked because it pushed his development out even further. But that's really it. It was injury and a gambling thing, which is dude, the rules on that, whatever.
Yeah,
not that big a deal.
It says something, Andrew, and I'm hearing what you're saying. It says something that they had a couple opportunities to take a really good receiver prospect in these rounds, and they just didn't. So I think it says something.
Absolutely. So, yeah, very interesting there. Moving on to the Packers. The Packers didn't do too much for skill position wise, but they did draft a guy in the 3rd round named Marshawn Lloyd, which a lot of people liked a lot. He was a lot of people's number 1 guy. I have a comp of DeAndre Swift for him. And I think you've got one of the pretty much bummiest running backs in A.J. Dillon in front of him. And Josh Jacobs is there now. I don't think he's going to just go and take Josh Jacobs' job after they just paid him. But he has a real chance to be a fantasy contributor this year. And I'm keeping him on my radar.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. I mean, especially because let's just play the numbers game, brother. Running backs get hurt.
Yes, they do.
So I think they're drafting this guy for next season after this one. But opportunities in a running back room open up very quickly.
Yeah, you never really know who's going down any given play. So that's really it I want to talk about for the Packers. Their draft was very much kind of pedestrian in terms of
yeah, they filled out
fantasy
it was a skill position.
Yeah.
Who else we got? We're already heading towards a long one here.
Well, I'm gonna let you take this next one because it was the Bucs.
The Buccaneers. Yeah, man. Another again, call me a homer if you want. That's fine. I won't hear it anyway. I also think that this was a very solid draft because it was a very chalky draft. All off season long, I've been talking about the interior of the Bucs offensive line just not being where it was, where it needed to be. Even if Cody Mock is going to keep developing, which I think he will, I don't think anybody's going to ever call him like a superstar, right? At center, and he certainly doesn't. He can't play 2 positions at once. So they needed another O lineman, and they addressed that. So I think Grant Barton just slides right into that, right into that spot. And going forward in the draft, I don't think it's anybody that I'm going to tell you to immediately draft as a fantasy relevant player this year, but another radar guy and Jalen McMillan they took in the 3rd round. He's got some juice. We don't know what's going to happen with Chris Godwin and his contract after the end of this season. So to me, this smells like we just paid money for Big Mike. We're already kind of a cash-strapped team as it is. And I think this is some Chris God insurance. So a name to stash in your back pocket, probably more likely for next season, knock on wood, unless something were to happen. From that standpoint, they did get a day 3 running back in Bucky Irving, which is, I thought his profile was a little interesting because I would have thought in my perfect world, creating this, filling out this Bucks roster, that maybe we would have a bigger body back to pair with Rashad White and maybe somebody that might be more inside the tackles. But he actually profiles kind of similarly, honestly, in terms of the way he runs and how his and how his body just physically is. So I think this is actually a vote of confidence in Rashad White's favor. I think that they are saying, like, okay, we have Rashad White. Give us someone that, if something were to happen, he's got to miss a few games or a few plays or whatever, can kind of give us the same style of guy. But I don't think that this is somebody that they are immediately in round 4 saying is going to have a big part of the offense, going to be like a complement player. This feels more like a true backup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's all systems go for Rashad White again. Hopefully his running efficiency is better. But when it comes to wide receivers with Baker Mayfield, just give me the number 1 big boy X, Mike Evans, and that's all that I care about, honestly. The Chiefs, let's just talk about, why is their wide receiver room full of idiots? I just don't understand.
Probably because they can afford it, and they, fuck, man. Like they had. This is why the Chiefs are so dangerous this year, because I feel like if you were going to get them, last year was the year to get them. That receiving room was terrible outside of Travis Kelce, and yet somehow they still made it work and made it happen.
Plays all season were just not there for the Chiefs like they've been. It was a lot of underneath stuff. Mahomes was forced to throw because it was just like 2 safeties deep, and he made them pay all year, but not great for fantasy. And yeah, man, it's actually crazy that they won the whole thing with the season they had. And anyways, good for them.
It's like when you're that dude, it doesn't matter.
Yes, so. It doesn't matter. But and Rashee Rice was a very good contributor throughout the season. He kind of picked it up towards the end of the year and through the playoffs.
But you said something that was very interesting that I gravitated towards right there. A lot of short, quick stuff, which seems to be Rashee Rice's kind of superpower as a player. Like I didn't see that much down the field from him. It doesn't seem like that's kind of how they want to use him. They got Xavier Worthy to be an upgrade over the MVS role. Go run a bunch of cardio until we need you to catch a bomb.
And when I see Xavier Worthy and I saw him play, I was like, you know what? This is one of those guys, in my opinion, who can be like a Tank Dell, who can be like one of those smaller wide receiver ones, because, I mean, Tyreek Hill isn't small. He's very fit.
You think he can be a one?
I do, because when you see his route running potential, and it's obviously his speed. I mean, we all saw his speed.
Yeah.
It's like
great long speed.
He's got the ingredients for the best quarterback in the league to make he can enhance him. Sugar, spice, and everything nice, throw it all in there. And I think this is a great pairing. He is one of my favorite later round targets. Like I really like him already. With Rashee Rice, we're projecting out of the picture for some time. I think Travis Kelce, he's going to be around, but they're going to manage him for the regular season. He's not going to be out there catching 14 passes.
You have to imagine they would.
And the Chiefs relied more on their run game last year too. I think a guy like Xavier Worthy is going to earn targets right away. And I think Hollywood Brown, he's more of the MVS guy. That would be my,
I know you haven't been very much of a Hollywood guy, kind of in any conversations we've had about him. I'm afraid of this. And by the way, if you're asking me just from a draft standpoint, they did what they needed to do. They had to shore up the receiver room. They had to get more juice in that receiver room. And I think, if Xavier Worthy hits his ceiling of what we think he can be, then yeah, that's a dangerous combination for a long time. But the concern I have is not that Worthy isn't good. My concern that I've had is the same thing that we've seen from Kansas City receivers for years. That they just keep spreading it around, that there's 4 or 5 guys that kind of get in the mix and get involved still.
You don't know how many times I almost picked up Justin Watson.
Right. And so I think that's more my concern. Obviously, if the draft price is right, I think this offense is going to be wheels up again. I think you see a resurgence and a bounce back for the offense, especially because I just don't think that defense is going to be as good as it was last year either. Defenses
are fluky. You can have the same exact roster on defense, and
losing their corner was big, man.
Yeah.
So regardless, I do think that the offense will be better, but I just think the Chiefs are just going to continue to Chiefs. And keep spreading that ball around. So I think it'll be hard to have true receiver one production out of there. But
yeah. Well,
but I like the pick.
Here's the X factor for Xavier. Is he a guy that earns the trust of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes around the red zone? Because they scheme up their red zone plays a lot. And if he can be trusted and they want him to get the ball, that will be tremendous for fantasy. If that happens.
Touchdowns are king. So if you become like, bro, look at what's a freaking circle jerk?
Jerick McKinnon.
Like he became a fantasy god for a few weeks because of that.
Yeah, a guy skated into the playoffs, not this past year. I won that league, but this past year, but the one before, he won off the back of a random Jerick McKinnon pickup late in the season. So Cowboys, there's like nothing to talk about, like legitimately nothing to talk about for the Cowboys. Like I said earlier in the episode, Zeke is back. Don't care.
It's incredible that there's nothing to talk about, and yet if you turn on ESPN, they seem to find a whole lot to talk about with the Cowboys.
Well, not their draft, their team.
Yeah,
not their draft. Rico Dowdle. Sure, I'll take a flyer on Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, Zeke's toast.
Ravens, I will say Ravens, once again, similar, not much to talk about. Like Tez Walker in the 4th wide receiver. Lamar and that Baltimore system is not going to support a wide receiver 3. They don't even really support a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, like ever, never have throughout the history of Lamar Jackson. It's not going to start now. Just like, okay, leave that. Do not overpay for a Baltimore wide receiver, especially not a rookie Tez Walker. And that's all I have to say about the Ravens. If you have anything to add, go for it.
Wise words. Quoth the Raven, nevermore top-level wide receiver production.
Yeah, it's just not the way that their system works. It's not the way that Lamar Jackson thrives. And that's fine. So that's all I have to say about the Ravens. The 49ers, on the other hand. Yeah, once again, watch Trailer Park Boys. God damn it, Ricky. Ricky Pearsall, another big surprise of the first round. If they're going to take a receiver, I think Pearsall was not the one anybody had bet on. But my opinion on that is, you know what? The guy, he has talent and great hands. Shanahan has a plan for him. I don't think he's just like Ayuk / Debo, whichever one isn't there next year, or maybe even this year, but I don't think so. I think they'll both be there this year. Insurance, I don't think he's just that. I do think they're going to get him involved. Interesting player. I mean, of course, going to get him involved. He was a first-round pick.
How do you project his game? Because, obviously he had a long college career. What he can do, which, he seems to have a mature game coming into the league, but maybe some people have questions about perceived upside. How do you project his game?
Well, I just think that the system he fell into is going to lead to him being a very efficient player. The I don't know if Shanahan wants to constantly rely on Yak all the time because, A, guys get hurt. B, you're not always going to have a roster full of guys who can catch the ball and break 3 tackles, 4 tackles. Debo, 8 tackles, whatever.
There's a reason why we can only think of like 3 or 4 guys that are doing that in the NFL like ever, and 3 of them are on that team.
I think somebody has that reputation, but there are other guys that are really good at it. Like Jamar Chase is actually really good at it. He doesn't get that same kind of credit. There's some, you can go down the list, and there's some guys that are really good at that. I think DJ Moore is good at that. But like, I think that he's just going to be a route running savant with really good hands. Just going to be Mr. Reliable, man. Just get first downs,
Another guy that I think is absolutely going to get underrated and forgotten this season, because I think you're right. I don't think San Francisco has a lot of reason or motivation to trade one of those guys this year, but it doesn't seem like they're going to have the money or the desire to bring them both back the following season. Don't forget the name, because I agree that I actually like the fit too.
Yeah. It's definitely a next year or, God forbid, devastating injury kind of pickup player.
Just normal injury.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean for sustained
Garendo cat.
Yeah, very talented guy. Very, a specimen for sure. There's lots of specimens in the NFL that just don't become good players. We'll see, man. It was a 4th round pick. We all know San Francisco's running attack is like the one you want, but the best running back in the league is already there.
Yep.
So I think that anything happens to CMC, God forbid, I know.
Yeah.
It's a running back by committee situation over there. So
do you think that Carolina fixed their quarterback receiver problems with this Xavier Legette pick?
Okay, so Xavier Legette. They traded up a couple spots to get Mr. Legette. Here's my problem with Legette. I just simply scoff and, gag when I see super hype for 1 year of production and a late breakout age player. I do not like that combination. I don't care that you had a dominating super senior season, because that's like the 8th graders playing a game against the 6th graders. Like they're fresh out of elementary school. Of course you're going to look good. I know his athleticism scores are what they are. I feel like you can say that about almost every freaking receiver that comes out now. I'm not fully buying it, and I don't know how that's going to work out if Carolina.
I didn't realize he was a super senior. That shows how out of the loop I was.
Their offensive struggles, I don't think, get fixed by that. But the next pick they made, Jonathan Brooks, I do like, because I liked him a lot coming out. He was hurt. We'll see how healthy he is going into the season. But I like his skill set.
He's going to be Mr. Necessary.
And he's going to catch a lot of passes with that panic Bryce Young dump off. I think it was a great landing spot, and I think he's a good player for this. He is not going to let Chuba Hubbard is not going to be in his way. He is going to earn snaps quickly, maybe even from week 1. He is definitely one of those guys that I want to take a chance on later in the draft.
I'm curious to see where, because clearly, first running back taken in a draft, running back is a young man's game. I like that. And that's just my caveman, very limited knowledge of draft prospects coming in. But man, I don't think this is going to hold up. But He's down there in freaking tier 6, Zeke Elliott, Zach Charbonnet, Jerome Ford realm. That doesn't seem right.
If he in the preseason gets first team snaps, you say goodbye to that.
It'll blow up.
Yeah, say goodbye to that. One team we didn't even really mention because they didn't have a first round draft pick, but like the Texans. We just talked about the Texans. Actually, that hasn't even been uploaded. My fault.
We will talk about the Texans in the future.
In the future, but the past. It's a paradox. They seem to be very content with their offensive weapons. They brought in Joe Mixon, who is a guy that for all his...
They brought in this like random guy you might have heard of, Stephon Diggs.
Well, yes, but I think Stephon Diggs is going to be part of a trio of ones and not the one like he's used to being.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon, I think, is going to like I think he has a lot more value in drafts than Stephon Diggs is going to have. So, but yeah, the Texans are an interesting team. Obviously, they've got I'm already sold on CJ Stroud. I'm not looking back. I think most people feel that way.
The world is with you there.
Yeah. And he's got a good receiving core, good weapons around him. And they focused on getting their line built up again. So good draft for them.
They're going to be good. Ultimately they didn't need the draft to get better. They already had really good 2, at least, solid young receivers. And then they brought in a veteran to hopefully take that offense to the next level. So, I mean, they're going to be fucking solid. So we did it. We talked about all the teams
draft.
down the list, 2024 draft.
Who had your favorite draft? Besides your favorite teams, which draft did you like the most?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Is it too chalky to just say the Bears? At least for like football, like 2 top 10 picks that seem to go together very well. Like, how can you hate that?
Yeah. That's a fair assessment, of course. I don't know, man. I think let me look back at my notes and just see, because there was a lot of drafts that I liked. I always seem to like the Steelers drafts, even because a lot of times they're not exciting. You know who had a great draft and I hate him for his fucking Eagles again? Like, yeah, the Eagles are really good. I had another great draft.
Well, but it's easier to. The other thing, the thing about the NFL haves and have-nots is drafting is so much easier when you know you have a quarterback, man. It's so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like you don't have to make this impossible Sophie's choice at the 8th pick of the draft where you're like, I don't even know if this guy is good, but we need him.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. There's a lot of good drafts out there. I kind of low key like, who I liked a lot was the Cardinals because you got Marvin and a running back that should be exciting. I kind of low key like the Patriots draft because I think they got a really good quarterback. Obviously, for me, it's obvious.
Polk.
And I like the offensive talent they brought in. They're not going to be there year one with these new coach and everybody. But
it's too much to ask of a bunch of rookies to just automatically be awesome. In their first go at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, like, if I were to give just another example, I know that everybody probably wanted the Chargers to go with one of the sexier weapons, but they needed a tackle more than they needed a receiver. Honestly, that offensive line outside of Rashawn Slater sucks.
Yeah. And you got to protect Herbert.
Yeah, and I thought that they got a pretty good receiver in the second round. So, like, for a team that was in a bad position coming in, I think they are well on their way to resolving their issues.
Yeah, and you've got a Hall of Fame head coach over there, so they're going to be a fun, interesting team to watch for sure. But they have their work cut out for them because they got the Chiefs in their division.
Well, yeah, dude, look, here's the nice thing about Justin Herbert. He's young enough. You just got to wait out the Mahomes era. I'm sorry. Like, everybody in that
is never going to end.
Well,
not never, but it's going to be a long time.
But, like, when you can't be Phoenix going all in, trying to stack up a bunch of good veteran players to beat Michael Jordan in his prime. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to think that it'll happen. You'll give yourself some false hope. You'll get the Lulu. It's not going to happen. The guy is always going to win. Be the Rockets. Be good enough for long enough that he gets injured or retires or something happens, and then you're in your window. But all of these teams are going to every season they're going to be like, oh hell yeah, we're going to win this division. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, at least Sean Payton's got his Patrick Mahomes, so they'll be so good.
Oh man,
I think honestly, I hated that pick more than the Michael Penix pick. I was like,
I mean, like, I don't like. I'm not going to pretend to know much, but based on what people are saying and the very visceral, like, whoa reaction that I heard when the pick came in, Sean Payton thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. I don't think he's right.
Yeah, he loves to, like, sniff his own farts and then be like, oh yes, you just cannot understand and fathom my level of genius. Like, Sean Payton, you're a douchebag and overrated head coach. Fuck you.
Love it.
So
I think we wrap a bow on it right there. I think that's perfect.
I think you're right. Peace out, everybody.
Hope you enjoyed
the football season is creeping up on you.
Subscribe. Positive
subscribe,
comments.
all the good stuff.
Negative.
I'm gonna start promoting some other stuff soon. But all right, y'all. Peace.